I think this is Matthew Miller. I always get these people confused because they all the fucking same to me. But it's funny because this is why there are a lot of drama in the Biden administration, according to leakers, because you notice that all these videos that we've been showing you guys that Karine Jean-Pierre is not there. I just think it's kind of funny the Biden administration lost confidence in her, like completely. The Biden administration is so unhinged. There's so much genocide going on. They're like, man, we need to bring out the professionals. That's why you guys see John Kirby. John Kirby is a retired Navy admiral. And there was drama in the Biden administration because John Kirby, even though he was literally way lower ranked than Karine Jean-Pierre, he started like outshining her. Did you want to chime in, Andrew?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, even their pros are pretty shit at it. And in that article, they're fucking up. You're not supposed to say permanent and 6 weeks at the same time. You just say permanent. There you go. You're welcome. Just say permanent, idiots.
People say this shit with a straight face. We need and the reason why it makes no sense, and I'm gonna play the video here, but it's so absurd for Hamas or any Palestinian resistance to agree to that. So we have about 200,000 dead, Israel bombing Gaza indiscriminately, and that's when they have hostages. Fam, you guys realize there was countless Palestinian prisoners released. So Hamas mission successful because they got people released and freed. In fact, there was a story I read where this guy who was freed, and he was 15 years old when he was released. He was arrested when he was around 7 or 8 years old. Was freed from Israeli detention. And that will a lot of people forget that Israel captures and they imprisons Palestinians all the time. So if you recall, Israel's response to Hamas and Gaza proportional based on them taking hostages, that means Hamas was 100% correct on October 7th. But do you want to chime in, Andrew, before I continue?
I mean, yeah, that kid was put into prison for throwing rocks at a tank, right? And it's like Israel's doing their own October 7th daily, taking prisoners to hold as leverage against particular families or the whole Palestinian, like people. They're doing it on a daily basis. The difference is that they're not doing it against people who have an air force, and they're not doing it against people who really have that many cards to put down on the table.
Yeah, and in my thought, I didn't forgot my original point, but the point I was making was like if the 6 week ceasefire bullshit is crazy. No way that Hamas or Palestinian resistance should agree to that, because once you release the hostages, what's stopping Israel from just bulldozing the shit out of everybody, killing everybody? Because Israel is already catching fire and heat because they've been killing Israeli hostages. There was just an Israeli hostage that was just released that said they was terrified because they was afraid they was going to be killed by Israel. And they had this damning testimony. And I hope that this hostage is going to be okay, because he might get retaliated against by fascist Israeli settlers, because he said that Hamas was putting their body on the line to protect them, even though the Israeli government and military were trying to kill them. And then Hamas shielded them with their body. That's a direct quote from a hostage, that Hamas shielded them with their bodies. And that's when they had hostages. So why would Hamas give the hostages away without releasing all the Palestinian hostages, by the way, because none of the West called for that? And then they have no leverage to maintain Israel's brutal offensive. But anyway, let's get into this video, because this is you see the Biden administration being confronted with Israel's use of starvation as a weapon of war. Let's watch this, and then the next segment we're going to get to will be AOC, and not only just AOC, Democrats are fucked because people see through this nonsense, and there's going to be no peace for these people. You have Biden being protested. There was a story about Biden being afraid of being going on a university campus, so he won't get protested. You got Gillibrand. Democrats are being protested left and right. So AOC not even like the main focus. There's Democrats are in shambles. So that will be coming up next.
Question actually about a statement from a group of UN experts today. Among the things that they said are that 15 children have died of starvation at Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza, appearing to corroborate earlier reporting from the Gaza-based health ministry. Does the administration hold Israel responsible for these deaths? And I'll have a follow-up.
So the situation, thank you for announcing your follow-up at the beginning. The situation is clearly horrific in Gaza. I spoke to this somewhat yesterday, when I said that, there are far too many families, and you can see it when you looked at this video last week of these people running out at 4:30 in the morning to try to storm a convoy because they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And I think there are far too many families, parents. I feel this acutely, as I'm sure a number of people in this room who are parents do. Parents don't know if they're going to be able to feed their children or when they're going to feed their children. And I'm sure there are many parents who are skipping meals to take what limited food they have and give it to their children. So the deaths of any children are unacceptable. And we have made that clear to the government of Israel.
No, you didn't.
And when it comes to responsibility, look, Hamas obviously is responsible for starting this war and hiding behind human.
Remember, every time you hear someone say this, 2022 was one of the most deadliest years ever recorded for Palestinians. You had them raiding mosques. You had the assassination of Shireen Abdul-Aqla, on top of many others. Do not allow them to bullshit you with this line.
Shields and using civilians as a tool in this conflict, but Israel needs to do more to ensure that food gets in to...
Hamas is using civilians as a tool. So one army is taking a ton of heat in PR because they're killing a ton of civilians. So their response is, oh my God, our opposition is using civilians as tools because we can't stop killing them. Now you guys see why Democrats can't go anywhere in public without being protested, which we're going to cover here very soon. Let's continue. Feel free to chime in anytime you want to, Andrew.
To address the very real, dire humanitarian needs of the Palestinian people.
Well, those same experts in that statement said, and I'm going to quote here, Israel systematically denies and restricts the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza by intercepting deliveries at checkpoints, bombing humanitarian convoys, and shooting at civilians seeking humanitarian assistance. Is that an assessment with which you agree?
So Israel is letting humanitarian assistance go in through checkpoints. I don't think anyone would dispute that. Do they need to let more go in? Yes, absolutely they do. Do they need to do more to deconflict, to ensure that people who are trying to get access to food and water? Yes, of course they do. And that's something we continue to be in conversations with them.
We showed you that's a fucking lie. And that doesn't even consider the violent fascist settlers that are blocking aid, and they are being protected by the IDF.
Yeah, don't forget, we could say a lot about the human shield narrative being a garbage, tiny little fig leaf to cover up for one of the real war aims of Israel's campaign, which is ethnic cleansing and genocide. But just taking that flower massacre, the Israeli soldiers, first they tried to lie and say, oh, well, all these people died in a stampede. And then when tons of evidence came out showing, oh, really? Well, why are they full of tank shells and bullets then? They're full of shrapnel and war material. Then they said, well, they made us feel unsafe. I just wanted to remind everybody, the IDF train American cops on a regular basis. So if this seems familiar to you, that's because these two forces are tied at the hip. They are teaching cops what they learned from doing this to Palestinians. So if that sounds familiar to you, it's because the cops are saying, oh, well, we felt unsafe, so that's why we shot all these civilians or brutalized this person that we already had handcuffed or whatever. They're learning this. They're in like a symbiosis, teaching each other this garbage.
That's such a great point. That's such a great point. And remember, Israel changed their story like 3 times before they reach their final story when it comes to the flower massacre. Anyone who is taking anything the Israeli government says seriously is complicit.